What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews, and today I'm going to take you through an in-depth WNBA player prop preview for this upcoming two-game slate. If it's your first time checking out the channel, I ask you to subscribe because I'm doing videos just like this every single day. I share my screen, we go through outline, we talk about form lines, the things I like, the things that I don't, what the odds are, daily fantasy, and I do all this to give you all the information you need to make the best bets possible. Now, I want to start by saying, yes, this is a neck pillow around my neck. If you were wondering what the hell is that, it is a neck pillow. And why am I wearing that? It's comfortable, right? I'm not going to take it off for this video. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I am terrible at betting on the WNBA right now. So I apologize. If you have supported and followed my picks and I have cost you money, I sincerely apologize. Not from a lack of effort. You see me put these videos together every single night. A lot of effort goes into it. I'm not getting the return that I need, so I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm still going to preview the two games and all the key players. That will still happen. But what's going to be different, I'm going to be collating all the information I go through today, all the players, their points, rebounds, their assists, what their lines are. On a spreadsheet, I'm going to capture whether they have good form, what their form is like against the opponent, what the matchup is like, and reverse engineer this whole process for the WNBA. By the end of the slate tomorrow, I should have that spreadsheet completely filled out, and I'll get to see what the trends are, what's hitting and why, and hopefully reverse engineer what the hell's going on, because, man, I am finding it tough. But I could easily make up excuses, blame the players for me not picking the right bets, and not even acknowledge the fact that I'm losing. I could do that, but I'm not going to give up on this. I actually like the challenge, so let's get into it, shall we? Let's go. All right, so we're kicking it off against it's the Dallas Wings versus the Las Vegas Aces. The Wings 7.5-point favorites in this game. The Aces are 4-2 at the moment on the road. On 8 of their last 12 regular season road games. Got to look at Wilson, Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum, and Alicia Clark for the Dallas Wings. They look to rebound off back-to-back losses. They're 1-1 straight up at home this season. Key players there are Arike, Natasha Howard, Monique Billings, and Maddie Seagrease. So we'll take a look at all those players. In terms of the injury report, Jaylen Brown is still out, Natasha Howard, Sabali, and the Vegas Aces and Chelsea Gray, Tiffany Hayes listed day to day as well. Let's jump into these players. I've got a spreadsheet open right now so I can start capturing a little bit of data. All right, the first player we're going to look through is Wilson from the Aces. Let's see what's cooking. Her points line, 26.5 this season. She's covered this in 4 out of 6 games, averaging 26.5 points. So I'd say her recent form is good. Dallas Wings allow the third most points so far this season. If you look at head-to-head matchups, in less than 50% of games, out of her last 7 games against the Dallas Wings. So she's averaging 23.8 against them. But this season, things are looking different. 33 minutes as an average against them this season, playing 33 minutes, 21 shot attempts. Her shot attempts against this team in the past, 16.1. If we look at the games where she shot the most shot attempts, we've got 18 with 22 points, 18, 28, 21, 34, 18, and 30 points. So if the volume's going to be there, like her chances. So if I was betting this, I'd be definitely leaning to the over. Ms. Wilson. So that's one thing I'd be thinking about. All right, next look is for her rebounds. That line's at 11.5 this season. She's covered this line in 4 out of 6 games, averaging 12 point rebounds. The Dallas Wings do allow the second fewest rebounds in the league. So recent form is great. The matchup is difficult. And in head-to-head matchup, she's covered this in 3 out of her last 7, averaging 10.1. So if recent form is great, but going to need more than some good recent form in order to take a bet like that. So I'd probably lean against it. Against the opponent is not great. It's not terrible, but wrong enough for me. I'll take a look at her assists, 2.5, under in 7 straight against Dallas, and this season, 3 out of her last 6. So not overly compelling either. She's averaging 2.6 on the season, but yeah, a lot of that's not great, to be honest. All right, next up, I want to take a look at Jackie Young. See what sweet old Jackie's doing. So her points line in this game, 19.5. If it helps you and it's something that you want to bet on, I'll still put the leans that I end up picking. I'll put that in the pinned comment. I'm going to be taking them, but if apparently some people have been getting a lot of success from these previews, so you guys are clearly doing something I'm not. But let's talk about Jackie Young and her form. Line at 19.5. She's covered this in 4 or 6 games this season. Under in 2 straight though. She's played 36 minutes, 16 attempts. In head-to-head matchup, she's covered this in only 1 of 7 games against the Dallas Wings. In those games, 33 minutes and only 11 shots per game. So this season, increase in her shot attempts, which is driving a higher result. So you could say her form coming into this game is pretty good. Her recent form is good. Concern for me, form against the opponent is not great, but you'd have to understand what the difference was from last year to this year. And obviously, the Dallas Wings, they are giving up a lot of points, so the matchup's not too bad. Jack Young rebounds, lines at 4.5, covering this extremely well this season. 5 out of 6, averaging 5.5 rebounds. The recent form is terrific for Jackie Young. If we look at the form against the opponent, though, she's rebounded pretty well against this team. 5 out of the 7 games she's gone over, averaging 6.4 rebounds. Matchup is not terrific, but that recent form and the form against her opponent are terrific. So that's not a bad play. It might make the list of leans, to be honest, Jackie Young, to get some boards. Screw it. I like it. Let's do it. I'm not overly concerned about the matchup. Let's go. All right. And outside of Jackie Young, I want to take a look at Kelsey Plum. Let's check out her plums, shall we? Oh, quite childish of me. Why would I say that? Her points line, 19.5 points. The old Plum dog. Season, she's covered this line in 2 of 6 games. She is averaging 18.6. The form is not terrific. Actually, I forgot to look at Jackie Young assists. My bad. Let me backtrack a little bit. We'll get to the Plum Lord. Give me a second. Jackie Young, her assist line, 7.5. So, 7.5 this season, averaging 7.6. She's covered this in 3 out of 6 games. So recent form, I'd have to grade that as a yellow, which is not bad, not great either. Form against the opponent, not good. 7 straight games against the Dallas Wings. She's gone under in all of them. And if we think about the matchup, the Dallas Wings, they do give up some assists. So the matchup is a pretty good one, if you ask me. But all Jackie Young props, I'd have to say the rebounds one. Probably the one I like the most. Seeing the most green, so why the hell not? Let's have a look at the Plum Dog. 19.5 points. This season, 2 out of 6, 18.6 as an average. If you look at the head-to-head matchup, she has covered in 4 out of her last 6 games against the Dallas Wings, though, which is good, averaging 20.5. Matchup's not too bad. So I'd probably say the recent form for Kelsey Plum, probably the only concern, but historically has performed well against this team. So just let me take note of that. Not something that I'd be willing to take because, I don't know, for some reason, recent form does impact my psyche and my thinking quite a bit. But you could see that a little bit different, right? So I'll leave it up to you to make a call on whether it's a good play or not. Let's take a look at her assist line. So Kelsey Plum's assist line, 5.5. In season, she's covered this in 3 out of 6, averaging 5.6 assists. Bad look. The recent form, I'd give it a yellow. The matchup, we'll give it a green. And if we look at the head-to-head matchups, 3 out of 6 in head-to-head matchups against the Wings, averaging 5.1. So I'd have to give that a yellow as well. So recent form yellow, form against the opponent yellow, but the matchup is a good one. So yeah, I see as many greens as I possibly can before I start to lean a certain way. But those are my thoughts on Kelsey Plum. And next up, let's talk about Alicia Clark. So Alicia Clark only has rebound lines, apparently. So her line for rebounds is at 6.5, which is not a bad one. If we look at this season's form, she's averaging 5.8 rebounds. She's covered this in 4 out of her last 6 at 5.8. In head-to-head matchups, though, she's... No, actually, I'm looking at the under. What am I doing? All right. She's gone under this in 7 straight games against the Dallas Wings. So this season, she's only gone over 2 out of 6. Okay. The under is what we would be looking at. I was to bet this. Minus 140 to the under. But I'm just looking at overs here, and I can reverse engineer the overs by looking at the colors. So I just want to keep things in order. What we're seeing here is that her recent form is not good. Her form against the opponent is terrible. The matchup for rebounds is tough. So 3 lights there, all saying this is a concern. But the one thing you need to be cautious of, this year, she's playing 32 minutes a game. In head-to-head matchups against the Wings, only 22.8. So she's seeing a significant uplift in her minutes this season. So I guess factor in. I'm not saying to bet the under, whether the data would lean to, but you need to take a look at those minutes and opportunities. So yeah, I'll have to pass on taking any bets there on Alicia Clark, but see how the cookie crumbles, how this game finishes up, and then we'll get a good as to what's happening here. Let's jump into the Dallas Wings. Calling it Enrique because I can't get close to that surname, but if one of you guys can type it out for me in phonetics, I could just YouTube it, but your boy's getting busy, right? Let's talk about it. So she, aggressive as hell, her line's at 23.5. This season, she's averaging 26.5 points. She's covered this in 4 out of 7 games. Her last 3 games, she has gone under, though. For the most part, how would I describe this? Her recent form is not bad. I think it's pretty good. She has been getting close, so I don't hate that. I'll give this one a green. I honestly don't think her form is too bad. And if we look at her head-to-head form, though, against the Aces, she's only covered this in 1 out of 7 games against them, averaging 16.1 points. So that's not good. Matchup, the Aces sitting in the middle of the pack, 7th, 50 points. So neither here nor there. So I'll put that down as a yellow in my spreadsheet. Rebounds, and keep this spreadsheet, I'll share it with you at the end of the video. So at least you have a good look at it. You can screenshot it if you want to, if that helps. And on the next video I'll do a deep dive reflection and I'll show you what we've learned. I'll create a whole video about it. Her rebound line is at 4.5. Now, her recent form, she's covered in 4 out of her last 7, averaging 4.7 rebounds. So I think it's pretty good. 3 out of her last 4. So her very recent form is nice. The form's the odds, are pretty good. If we look at her form against the opponent, she's covered this in 3 out of 7, averaging 4 boards. So I probably have to give that a yellow. It's not great, but it's also not terrible. And if we think about the matchup, the Aces, they do give up a lot of rebounds. So the matchup is a good one. Let's take a look at her assists. The line is at 4.5. This season, she's covered in 4 out of her last 7, averaging 4.8 assists. The recent form, so the last 3 games, very strong for her. So I'd probably say that's a green. I think that's pretty good. But when we look at the head-to-head, 3 out of her last 7. So I think if it's a green, I'll say 50, then 50%. Her form against the opponent, 3 out of 7, I'll give that a yellow. And the matchup, Outlier does it for you. It's a difficult one. The Ace is not giving up too many assists. The next player to go through here is Natasha Howard. Look at Sweet Tash. Let's not look at Sweet Tash because she's probably injured, so she's not playing. Let's get to Monique Billings. I had a good read on Monique Billings in her last game. I obviously didn't bet it because I make good leans and I take bad bets at the moment with this WNBA. But Monique Billings, let's check it out right here. So her points line at 13.5. So this 13.5 in 2024, we can see she's covered this in 4 out of her last 6, averaging 14 points per game. The 2 games where she went under, minutes were down. So she's averaging 31.5 minutes on the season. Game she went over, played more than 31. In the 2 games she went under, she had less, obviously. And the last time she went under against Connecticut, looks like she suffered from a bit of foul trouble with 6 fouls. I would have to say Monique Billings, her recent form is good. I'll put that as a green. If we look at how, well, she hasn't played against this team. Well, not recently anyway. I don't know much about this girl, but the recent form, we're going to have to leave that as a blank. And then in terms of the matchup, we'll put that down as a yellow. The Aces sitting in the middle of the pack in terms of points allowed. Well, let's have a look at Monique Billings' rebounds. So the rebounds I had a strong lead on last time. Lent to the over. I didn't take it. She got 15 boards. In 2024, she's covered this line in 4 out of 6 games, averaging 8.8 boards. She does have a good matchup. The Aces giving up the 3rd most rebounds in the league this season. So Monique Billings, I'd probably lean to the over in her assists, to be honest. Rebound. It is at minus 150, but it's a good look nonetheless. I'll put that down in my list of leans for y'all if you choose to tail. Next up, we have her assists. So her assist line 1.5. 2024, 5 out of her last 6 games. So I definitely lean to the over, and this is minus 410 though. I'm just going to remove that because that is just wild. You can't. The only alternate line is over 3.5 at plus 186. So Monique Billings, I'll just remove that. We ain't talking about the bigs and their assists. But look at Maddie Seagreast. I did bet her over last time. It did not happen. And we'll get to McCowan. We'll have a look at her next. So let's look at Sweet Maddie. Her line 13.5. So it was 13.5 last time, and I know that because I bet on her and I lost. But points line is hitting myself 13.5. What's our recent form say? She's covered this in 3 out of her last 7, but 3 out of her last 4 games. And in those last 4 games, she's seen a significant uplift in her minutes, which is a pretty good sign. So based off that, it'd be probably sitting around a yellow/green, I would say. She's going to get the opportunities. I guess it's because of the injuries that they have. Who are they missing? Brown, Natasha Howard, and Sabali. So they're all forwards. So Seagreast definitely getting an uplift. So I'll say based off her recent form, I'll put that down as a green. She's been playing high. And if we look at how she's gone against her opponent, obviously struggled, but a lot of her minutes were down. So most minutes she's played against this team is 20, and in that game she did have 9 points. Late in her last 4 games, she's playing well over 30 minutes. So the opportunities are going to be there, that's for sure. For this example, in my spreadsheet, I'll put it down as a red, but I wouldn't overreact to that. And if we think about the matchup, put that down as a yellow. So after this, I'm actually going to go back and redo the matchup data because I guess let's say give up a lot of rebounds. I'm going to check to see whether they give up a lot of rebounds to bigs or smalls, and then I'll work out the matchup that way. Her rebound line is at 4.5. But this season, she's covered this in 3 out of 7 games. Last 2 games with only 2 boards against Connecticut and Minnesota. But the 2 games prior, 9 and 8 boards. So the last 4 games is where I'm putting a lot of my attention. That's where she's seen the extra minutes. But based off this form, I'll probably put it down as a yellow. It's not awful, but it's not great either. And her form against the opponent, of course, is going to be terrible because she doesn't get minutes. And the matchup, for now, I'll put it as a green, and then I'll go back and look at the positional matchup. She doesn't have an assist prop because she ain't passing that rock around. But let's look at, is it Tierra McCowan? My God, these women's names are tough. She's a big, that's for sure. I don't know how big, but let's take a look at her lines. Her points line is at 11.5. This season, she's covered this line in 4 out of 7 games, averaging 12.2 points per game. Slightly up and down, but for the most part, I say her recent form is good. I give that a green light, converting it over 50%. Forming against opponent, it's a 57% hit rate, so 4 out of her last 7 games. So I'd probably put that in a green with a green light as well. And if we think about the matchup for points, we'll put that as a yellow, but we'll get back to it. Taking a look at her rebound line, it's at 7.5. Against this team, she's been a rebounding beast. We can see that. Look at her recent form, though. Season hasn't been great. 2 out of her last 7 games. 4 consecutive games under this line. So that does concern me a little bit. So I'll put that into red because that looks pretty shite to me. Then if we look at the matchup, she does have a good matchup. So that could be an interesting state we look at a little bit later. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are. Should I go fuck myself? Or do you like these types of videos? You know what I'm saying? All right, let's jump into the next game. So looking at the Minnesota Lynx versus Los Angeles Sparks, LA point underdogs in this game. In terms of the Lynx, they're looking for their 3rd straight win to improve to 7-2 on the season. They're 2-1 straight up on the road. Their players, Collier, Kayla McBride, Alana Smith, Courtney Williams, and the Sparks. Pretty poor, 2-6 so far this year. 1-3 straight up at home. They got Derek Hamby, Kia Nurse, Jackson, Cameron Brink, some key players to look at. In terms of their lineup, will be without Clarendon Stevens, Lexi Brown listed as day-to-day with an ankle injury, and the Minnesota Lynx will be without Diamond Miller. But let's start with the Minnesota Lynx, given that they're on the road. We'll start with Nafisa Collier, who's a beast, by the way. Just great stats. Let's take a look. Her points line in this game is at 22.5. 22.5. On this season, she has covered this line in only 3 out of 8 games. She's averaging 21.3 points per game. But 3 out of 8 it's not good, 38%. So I'm going to mark that down as a red. If we look at how she's gone against this team, though, she's covered this in 3 out of her last 4, 24, 25, 26, and 22 points. So very strong form against her opponent. And if we look at the matchup with teams in this league, sitting in the bottom 4 in terms of points allowed. So I have to give that matchup the green light, I would say, right on the cusp of a green light. But Collier, her points, it's not a bad play. If the recent form doesn't scare you off, I don't think it's a bad look. If we look at her recent form, the minutes a bit up and down, but a lot of these games where the minutes are down, pretty convincing wins by Minnesota. They've been playing quite well. Shotters have been down in a lot of these games. The last game against Dallas, she did take 18 attempts though. And in the head-to-head matchup, look at her attempts, averaging 16.3, but she's covered it with 12 and 13 attempts. And in those games, a lot of free throws. So ultra aggressive Collier will get the job done. So I do like the look of that over, to be honest. In the last video, I said I'm not going to take a lot of these players for over their points lines if they're high. And funnily enough, I did it with Jewel Lloyd anyway, and she went under. I took the under on Sabrina, and she went well over. I leaned the under on Brianna Stewart, and she went well over. So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So, but that's her points line. Let's talk about her rebound line. So her rebound line is at 10.5. Firstly, head-to-head matchup. She's only covered this in 1 out of 4 games, which is not good against them, averaging 9.2 boards. If we look at her recent form this season, rebounding extremely well, 6 out of the last 8, averaging 11.2 boards. And then if we look at the matchup, despite not winning a lot of games, they actually don't allow too many rebounds. So that's a tough matchup for her. Looking at her assists, though, 3.5 line. This season, she's covered in 5 out of her last 8, averaging 3.3. She either crushes this line or doesn't get close to it. If we look at her form against the opponent, though, only 1 out of her last 4 games against this team. So that's not looking great. But if we think about the matchup, the Spark, they do allow the most assists across the league so far this season. So it's not a bad matchup for her. But she struggled to get the assists against this team. I'd probably lean against it. I'm not here nor there. The next player I wanted to look through from the very same team is Kayla McBride. Let's check out Kayla real quick, see what the hell's cooking with her. So her points line, 14.5 points. And Kayla McBride, she's only covered this in 3 out of 8 games so far this season, which is not great. Averaging points per game, though. So what that basically means is she's capable of going off, but she doesn't hit the line too often. Now, her form against the opponent is not great either. She's hit this in only 1 of 4 games against the Spark. And into the matchup, the map is not a bad one. Looking at her rebound line, 3.5 boards for Kayla McBride. Head-to-head form, 2 out of 4. So I'll have to put that down as a yellow to say it's not bad. And then if we look at her recent numbers this season, she's averaging 2.7 rebounds. She's hit this in only 3 out of 8. Good at all, but I guess the lines represent that. The under for Kayla McBride would be juiced as hell. And into a matchup, it's a tough matchup as well. So if you could take an under on that, that's probably a good lean. So that's crushing it. 3.5 is the line. She's cashed this in 7 out of 8 games this season. It is at minus 148. So for fantasy players, this could be a good look. But yeah, passing the rock around real nice. But in head-to-head matchups, 4 games against the Spark has gone under in every single game. But at the same time, they do allow the most assists in the league this season. So that could be a good look. Kayla McBride to cover her assists might be a popular play that's out there. Next up, I want to look at the big girl. Let's have a look at Alana Smith. So Alana Smith, her points line is at 10.5. This season, 4 out of 8 games, averaging 12.8. So she has had some big games earlier in the year. Since has slowed down a little bit. So it's a 50% hit rate. I'll put that down as a yellow. It's not terrible. not playing well at the moment. She's yet to verse this team, so there's no form against the opponent. And when we think about the matchup, not a bad matchup overall in terms of points. And then if we look at her rebound line, that's at 4.5 for Alana Smith. Her recent form, 4 out of her last 8. So her strong scoring games have coincided with her strong rebounding games. And the matchup for this one is a difficult one, though, when it comes to rebounds. So I wouldn't take any bets on Alana Smith. Let's have a look at Courtney Williams. So Courtney Williams, her points line is at 11.5. Got a recent form. It's not great. 3 out of her last 8. She is averaging 11.5 points, though. But in terms of covering this line, not at a very good rate. She's yet to verse this opponent. So we'll leave that one blank. And obviously scoring, we know the matchup is okay. Rebound-wise for Courtney Williams, 5.5 boards. This season, she's covered this in 4 out of 8. So I'd say the recent form is a yellow. And the matchup for rebounds, though, is a difficult one. But just because the matchup is difficult doesn't mean you should take the under, because in the game of basketball, people are going to get rebounds, right? If we look at assists, her line for assists is 5.5. Got ourselves a little bit of Draymond Green over here. She's cut in 4 out of 8 games, averaging 5.7. The reform, 4 out of 8, but she's only covered this in 1 out of her last 5. So if anything, I'd probably say the form is terrible, but we'll leave that as a yellow because she's not too far behind. And the matchup is a good matchup. So, I like to play for her assists. Not something that I'd play, but I don't hate it. That's just my call out there. And let's get to the Los Angeles Sparks. See what the hell's going on. We'll start with Derricka Hamby. I did bet her rebound prop in the last game, and the matchup was meant to be ideal for her. And she didn't get close. But she did cover her points line. So let's look at the points. The line for her points is at 19.5 for Derricka Hamby. Oh, this neck pillow is hurting my neck. I'm not doing its job. Derricka Hamby, 19.5 points. This season, she's covered this in 4 out of 8 games. Has covered in the last 2, but a 50% hit rate regardless. Her head-to-head form, not great. She was playing less minutes, though, last season. But at the same time, form against the opponent is not terrific. And the matchup, not great. The Lynx give up the 3rd fewest points overall this season at 77.4. Quick look at her rebound line, 11.5. She's gone on all games against this opponent. Her recent form, though, has been pretty decent. A 63% hit rate, 5 out of her last 8, averaging 11.6 points. So for recent form, I'll give her a yellow. And the matchup, though, is not bad. The Lynx, it is the Lynx. The Lynx given up some boards this season, so could run back Derricka Hamby rebounds, but I don't want to. Her assist line is at 3.5 this season, 4 out of 8. So I have to put that down as a yellow. And then her form against the opponent, 25%, which is not good, 1 out of 4. And if we look at the matchup is a difficult one. The Lynx giving up the 3rd fewest assists. So nothing I'm loving for Hamby. Let's get to Kia Nurse. I did bet her over last time. I got close, but didn't bloody hit, of course. So her points line is at 11.5. She scored 12 points last time, and her was 12.5, of course. But 11.5, she's cashed this really well this season, which is partly why I took the bet last time. 11.5, it's also plus money play, so some pretty good odds. I'd say her recent form is terrific, covering at a 75% rate this season. She's yet to verse this team, though, and the matchup is a difficult one. There's no prop available for Kia Nurse, so we'll jump to her assists. 2.5 is the line. She's covered this in 4 out of 8 games this season, averaging 2.3. The matchup is a difficult one, so I don't really like that one too much. We then have, is it Ricky Jackson, Rikea Jackson? Some strange ass names. But let's take a look at the girl. 10.5 points is her line. Now, this season, she's covered this in 3 out of 8 games, averaging 10 points, but a 38% hit rate is not what I want to see. She's yet to verse this team, so I have to pass on that. Let's have a look at her rebound line. 3.5. Okay. Forming 2 out of her last 8, so that's not good. Averaging 3.1. Her last 2 games were good. 5 and 7 boards, though. If we look at her minutes, she didn't see a massive lift in her minutes though. So I'm going to put her recent form down as a red, and she obviously doesn't have the form against this opponent. So we can pass on the rest of those. And the last one I want to look through is Cameron Brink. So her line is at 8.5, odds favoring the under. Well, you can get her at 8, but I'm going to put 8.5 on my spreadsheet. Playing no pushes over here. 8.5, and we have a look at her form this season. What have we got? Oof, that's nasty. So she's covered this in 3 out of 8, 38% hit rate, averaging 8.7 points though. But yeah, she all over the place. Not liking that. Her minutes are consistent, but her production is just crazy. Let's have a look at her rebounds. Rebounds at 5.5. She's covered this in 4 out of 8, averaging 5.3, but only 1 out of her last form. But given the 50% hit rate, I'll put this as a yellow. She does have an assist prop. Is that true? 2.5. Girls getting after it. All right, 2.5. Her recent form, 3 out of 8. It's not good. Doesn't have form against his opponent, and the matchup is difficult. So, all right. So there weren't any strong leans from this game, this second game, apart from Nafisa Collier to get some points, I believe. Her to get points, and probably Kayla McBride to get some assists outside of that. Or maybe Courtney Williams to get assists as well, because that matchup is good. But yeah, look, an interesting 2-game slate. We'll see how we go. I do like this exercise of trying to reverse engineer everything. So I've taken note of what my thoughts are based off of color-coded this spreadsheet. I'll show it to you in a second, but just before I do, I realized how long I've been recording. Given I've recorded so long, I need to plug my stuff. In terms of what I'm going to be betting today, I'm not going to bet any straight bets, but I am going to try to put together a BAP, bitch-ass parlay. I'm going to try to build that parlay together on Chalkboard. I'm going to be sharing that on Winnable in the free section, so please follow along. Winnable, I'll get the BAP out. I'll put it together on Chalkboard, and I'll share that with y'all. But let me share this. Let me share this spreadsheet with you guys so you can see where I'm up to. All right, so this is what I got so far, just so you can see. It's rough as hell. I was trying to do this at the same time of recording this video. But one thing I'm also going to do is I'm going to track the game spread, what the spread is and what the total is, to see how that connects to these props. And I'll do that for both of these games. And then here are the leans that I had. Wilson, points, Jackie Young, rebounds, Billings, rebounds, Nafisa Collier, points. So, and then these are all the looks. So feel free to pause, screenshot if this is going to be helpful to you. If not, if you're a numbers nerd like I am, then you don't have to pay any attention to it. But I did promise to show you that. But apart from that, I do have to get topping this up. I do have to extract it, get some editing, and upload it for you guys to see. So if you did make it this far, I do appreciate you. Let me know in the comment section how you've made it this far, and put in the code word Chalkboard. Put it in Chalkboard, because that's the BAP that I'm going to be sending out to you guys on Winnable. So be sure to check that out. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to your line from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice and the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.